Hello, and welcome to Healthy Living. I'm Dr. Donald Pelto, and today I have Bob Bureau here with me with Resiliency Solutions. Thanks, Bob, for coming.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. So, your company, Resiliency Solutions, it's all about helping other people. So tell me a little bit how you got interested in helping others.
I got interested in helping others when I saw some people doing well in their lives and others not doing so well.
Yeah.
And it's the case that we often see people do well for a long period in their lives or struggle and kind of go up and down in their struggles. And there were some family members that in my immediate family that were struggling.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to help them. And the field of mental health and the field of addiction recovery and things like that wasn't really that well established decades ago.
Yeah, now we're going to talk about a couple of topics for those that are viewing us and listening. One is called Compassion Fatigue Educator, and this might be a new term for a lot of people. So if you could first define what the term is, and then kind of an educator would be helping educate. But what is compassion fatigue?
Okay. I think if you hear the word burnout, you probably have a pretty good idea.
Okay.
So what is burnout to you?
When I'm just really tired, I feel like I can't do anything. I tend to be very negative, maybe overwhelmed. It interferes with my sleep, and it interferes with everything, my family, my work, and everything like that when I'm burnt out.
Right. And if you were working in the helping professions, you're a medical doctor.
Yeah.
So you care for people, you have demands, you have schedules to keep, you have paperwork, you have personnel issues.
Yeah.
All that scheduling issues. So you're probably, at those moments when you're getting really frustrated and really sort of kind of overwhelmed, you may be experiencing compassion fatigue yourself.
Okay.
As a caregiver, as a medical professional. It's particularly common among doctors, nurses, counselors.
Would we say they're taking their work home with them? Is that what you would call compassion, or is it a little bit more than that?
It's more than that. It's a frustration with their work itself.
So not being content about work or being overwhelmed about work?
Not being overwhelmed for certain, but not being content with seeing the same issues every day.
Okay.
So for you as a podiatrist, you would see someone come in and you might say, oh, I've seen this before. You know, why don't they just
do this?
You know, this is what I recommended the last visit. Things have not improved. Why don't they just do what I recommend?
And you get frustrated.
And you get frustrated.
Okay.
They're not following through. They're non-compliant.
Okay.
So that may be an example of where that comes in for you. Or you may look at your motivations for getting involved in the field of medicine originally and realizing that some of those hopes aren't being fulfilled.
Okay. Interesting. So being an educator that helps people, it's with that, it's with other caregivers as well in healthcare professions, or even with family members. And how do you help them? If you want to jump right in, we can talk about tips for how to be healthier or as a caregiver.
Well, you know, one of the things is it's important, and I'm sure everyone's heard this before, is if you're on an airplane and suddenly there's a loss of pressure in the cabin, what is the recommendation?
Put your mask on first and then the others.
Put your mask on first. Take care of yourself first in terms of your own contentment, your own satisfaction with life.
Okay.
And the things that are overwhelming or the things that are really stressful, find ways of managing those.
Okay.
Find ways of delegating things. Find ways of saying, I can't do that, of saying no.
Saying no.
To requests. So delegating, saying no are important. And also focusing on your core strengths. What are the things you love to do?
Yeah.
So if you find that in the course of your work, or someone watching this finds that they're in a position where they're in a job and they love 80% of it, but the other 20% makes them miserable.
Okay.
And it's not their thing. It's not their specialty. It's not what they enjoy. They wish they could carve it out of their job and have it done by someone else in the workplace. There's probably someone else where that's their core strength, where they love to do it. An example might be budgets. You know, it might be someone working in a nonprofit. They love being a macro social worker, but they don't love dealing with the budget.
Okay.
So they delegate that to someone that does love the budget, that loves numbers and spreadsheets and figuring things out and balancing them and updating them.
Good.
And
So
they can focus on what they love to do.
So that's a workplace example.
Yeah.
Is that primarily where you're at as workplace, or is there a lot of interpersonal, like family type of thing as well?
Family plays into it as well.
Can you give an example of like a family caregiver tips or things like that? Let's say you're taking, I guess one would be maybe elderly parent that you're taking care of, that maybe they can't qualify to go to a nursing home, so you're taking care of them. That's something I see frequently.
It's very common.
Is that another thing that you kind of help people with?
Yes, so there's workplace-related compassion fatigue,
okay,
which is a type of burnout. And then there's caregiver fatigue, which is when you're caring for family members with an illness.
Sorry to jump to the second one. Okay,
that's all right.
Let's talk about. So that was the compassion fatigue, which is more of a workplace.
Yes.
And now let's kind of delve in, if you want, to caregiver fatigue.
Sure. Before we do that, I'm just going to describe a few professions that would surprise you in terms of some of the highest levels of compassion fatigue that we see out there.
Perfect. Let's talk about it.
So what are some professions you might think would have compassion fatigue?
Medicine, healthcare.
Healthcare
would be one. Nursing, maybe social work.
Yeah.
Maybe teachers. I think they might get frustrated.
Yeah.
Those are some that come to mind.
Counselors?
Certainly. If you, once again, taking it home, I think. A counselor.
Taking the emotions home. In other words, not being able to make a clean separation. Okay. And it used to be years ago that the workplace was the workplace, and then people would go home.
Is it because you're constantly connected now? Maybe you're giving your personal email. And
that connectivity is changing the nature of many people's work. They feel like they're constantly on. They carry their cell phones with them everywhere. And they feel as though
they're working all the time.
Or they're on call and don't really realize it, and they're not being paid for that.
Okay.
So in the past, people would be paid for being on call. Now almost everyone carries a smartphone.
You're expected to be, and if your boss gives it to you, you're expected to answer it pretty much.
If you get an email at 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon from your boss, you don't ignore it until Monday morning. You tend to deal with it. You tend to reply that you at least read it, you acknowledge it, you take action.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's a word that comes to my mind is boundary. It sounds like there's a boundary issue a lot of times.
There is. In terms of what is my responsibility in this situation, and where can I say no? It's interesting that in the United States, as smartphones became more popular over the last 10 years, there were no guidelines on how to use the technology. There were no.
There's no age limit either.
And there's no age limit.
You have to be 18 to have a smartphone.
No, young ones have smartphones often at the age of 8 or 9. We see them with a smartphone, and they take to it pretty quickly.
I bet they do.
But they also become addicted to them, and it also does tend to interfere with their ability to establish eye contact, to have open communication, and to feel comfortable in new settings.
Okay.
So,
so I think we've talked a little bit about the compassion fatigue and the caregiver fatigue.
Yeah.
And for those that are listening or watching this, let's give maybe some tips, or how is it that you help people? Is it by being a counselor that you help, by listening, or are there some practical things? Are there resources? Tell me about that. How can someone get help if they're saying, this is me, I need help? Who can I go to? Are there websites? Do they tell their boss? Do they quit their job? What do they do?
Right. Well, one interesting thing about compassion fatigue, and I'll just describe this to you.
Yeah.
If you are working and you have compassion fatigue, it's not just a matter of being organizationally overwhelmed or stressed.
Okay, not just too much work.
Not just too much work, but your heart starts to close up in a real kind of visceral sense. Your sense of compassion, your willingness to hear hard stories or difficult circumstances or new circumstances, you start to close down and you start to go through the motions of your work. Now, if it was just a case of burnout, you take that person from that workplace and you move them over here.
Give them a vacation or something.
Give them a vacation first of all. Give them a nice 2-week vacation or 3-week vacation, and move them over to a new setting where they have a more understanding and boss that understands boundaries and things like that.
Yeah.
They'll tend to sprout to life again pretty quickly if they have burnout. But if they have compassion fatigue, it's this overwhelming worldview, this sense about the world.
Is it similar to a term like of depression? Is it a similar term or no?
It's really secondary trauma.
Okay.
Is what it is. Secondary trauma, or they call it vicarious trauma. And what that means is that if you're working in an emergency room and you work, Friday and Saturday nights in the emergency room, and you see people come in with all kinds of gunshot wounds and injuries.
Vicariously you're feeling for them.
Yes. Eventually, what happens is your heart starts to shut down, and your sense of caring and compassion for those individuals changes. So it's not just a matter of taking that person and putting them in a new setting, because their whole view of their work, their whole sense of themselves as a professional has changed. And they really need some attention to that, and they need to understand that they have the right to say no to certain things, and they have the right to reorganize their workplace. Maybe they spend 60% of the time in the emergency room, and then they spend 40% of the time working with the babies and newborns that are coming into the world with a sense of promise and hopefulness in life. It's that decision that they need to make.
Yeah, I guess it sounds like this is probably more prevalent than people know about, because they might not even know this exists.
Yes.
And getting treatment is even more difficult in terms of who can treat this.
It is, and there are three ways one could go about it. One is to see a professional counselor, a compassion fatigue specialist. That is costly. It takes time, and there aren't that many people that are really trained and specialized in this area. The second is going to a training or an educational setting where you kind of walked through understanding what compassion fatigue is, and then what is it that you can do for yourself.
Give you some kind of a toolbox of items that you can do.
Absolutely.
Boundaries, limits, different things like that. Okay.
Absolutely. And so that's a great way to go as well. And the third would be to refer to books that they find on Amazon and about self-care and things like that. There aren't enough compassion fatigue therapists out there, or counselors, to take care of all the people that there are, even in the city of Worcester. There are not enough. And my suggestion is that people find some good books, or if they are part of an agency that is willing to have someone come in to do a training, have them come in and do an hour and a half or 2-hour training.
Yeah.
Or a half-day training, just to cover things and give them that attention, and then have a follow-up later. The other option is to schedule a consultation with someone, and almost not as a therapist, but as a coach, as a life coach, someone focusing on that issue that's come up in their life.
Wow. Okay.
Kind of get the lay of the land, and then separate, and then some suggestions on what they can follow through with.
Different tips and a kind of a game plan.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about, you do a lot of speaking on this topic, both individually with people.
I do.
But as well in groups.
Yes.
So if you'd like to maybe touch a little bit on both the individual, I guess that would be speaking or teaching, or the group teaching, there might be similar overlaps with those.
There's similar overlaps. With the individual, they get all the attention. It's their hour or their 2 hours for that consultation. And they get to describe exactly what's going on in their workplace, in their job, what was satisfying about it, what was their hope when they first went in, and what's changed. What do they have control over? What can they alter? And how can they take care of themselves so they don't end up carrying this stuff home?
Wonderful.
One of the earliest things that people can do is to have a candid conversation with their supervisor that they're not going to be checking emails or answering text messages.
Setting limits.
Setting limits, and realizing they have the right to do that. In the country of France, it's actually illegal for an employer to send an email to one of the workers.
Wow. It's
against the law to do that outside of work hours. So people have, from when they stop working until they show up again, that's their personal time. And I think people need to feel like they can reclaim that again. It's okay. Yeah. It's okay. We don't have to keep spinning our wheels over and over and over.
That's a great tip. That's a great tip. Yeah. What are some of the other ones that they can do? Just for a few.
Some other ones. I have some slides and I can refer to some of them.
Yeah.
But realizing that there's a time and a place for technology.
Okay.
And
talking like cell phones, computers,
computers, iPads, tablets, etc.
That causes this fatigue. This causes
it causes a sense of disconnection.
Okay.
And what we're seeing is this experiment that's gone on for about 10 years now, since the first iPhone was released.
Okay.
The first BlackBerry was
Call
released.
this an experiment? Okay, well, tell me about this experiment.
Well, introduce the technology to hundreds of millions and then billions of people around the world without any idea of what's going to happen.
How that's going to impact. And so what have we found in terms of your research?
What we found is that the level of soft skills of younger people has dropped dramatically.
Yeah, people that are probably listening and watching, they know that. You know, the younger generation, they don't talk to your parents, but they text their parents or their friends or this or that.
They might be in the same room sending a text message to someone. Or sending an email to someone. Or if you're in an office setting and the person is literally 8 feet away, you email them instead of having a conversation with them.
And how does that affect? What are the effects of that?
I believe that too much of that screen time and not enough face-to-face time diminishes our sense of feeling fully human.
Correct. The relationship.
A relationship. You know, if you're having a conversation with someone in person, you can look in their eyes, you can see their face move in real time.
Yeah.
When you're updating a Facebook page, you're carefully crafting what gets written, what photographs get uploaded, and sending it out there hoping to project an image, a persona.
Yeah. And how many times are whether it be text messages or emails, misinterpreted because you can't include emotion?
Right.
And it maybe they're having a bad day, so they interpret it the wrong way.
Right. Right. Now, if you're in the room, you can correct that in real time. You can say, no, that's not what I meant, and they'll also hear it in your voice. They'll hear the tone of either caring and compassion, or they'll hear frustration and anger, and they'll be able to pick up on that. But when people post stuff on social media and when they send emails and text messages, it's often difficult to parse that out. Yeah.
So individually you talk more and you listen and you give them tips. How about in the group setting? Would you cater a talk then to let's say it's a group of nurses, or maybe, I think one that would be very challenging, maybe oncology nurses if they get fatigued or things. Or give me an example of a group that you've spoken to.
One example would be family members of people that have a serious mental illness.
Okay.
You know, and they've got either adult children, or they've got parents, or they've got husbands or wives.
So addiction or mental illness or different things like that.
Sure.
Okay.
And not knowing where they end and the other person begins. Who's responsible for certain behavior? And so that's where you get into the caregiver fatigue.
Okay.
It's a family member, someone you're very close to. You're invested in things working out well for them.
Because you love them and your child or your spouse? Or
what if it's your parent and they've been with you for all of your life and they develop some difficulties later on and you're caring for them, whether it's a mental health concern, could be a dementia concern or a memory issue, or it could be a physical concern. And there's a sadness that happens at the same time, and a sense of obligation that I should be giving more time to this person that cared for me all those years.
And so many times they're not taking care of themselves, right?
Yes, yes. And that's where there needs to be a balance. The individual needs to step up and do as much as they can, but the family caregiver also needs to realize they can set limits. They don't need to go to the nursing home 7 days a week.
Okay, let's give some of those. What are the things they can do? Not go every day. Okay?
Not go every day. Go certain days. Bring something special on the days, and kind of mix it up. Have others visit on other days. Have people Skype in. Get an iPad or a little computer.
Wonderful. That's a good
with
idea.
Wi-Fi and Skype in, so you don't actually have to make the trip into the nursing home, which can be sad for people as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So those are a few ideas. And also keeping a journal, I think, is really helpful.
So tell me about that.
So it's been shown that those who keep a journal of their thoughts and their feelings, just writing in it 5 or 10 minutes a day, have a profoundly deeper understanding of how they think and feel.
Good.
Because they've actually put it on paper. They don't have to remember it anymore. There was a movie out years ago called Groundhog Day.
Yep.
And every morning the person would wake up to the same circumstances, and you're not having to remember that before you go to sleep. You get it out on paper, it's just for you, no one else sees it.
Yeah, it's less to remember, kind of different ideas too. And
right.
Like that.
The other thing I think is really helpful, and this is great, a tip that I recommend. So there's downsides of smartphones and technology. There's some upsides too.
Okay.
There's some great apps out there to help people meditate, to help them calm their thinking. The other that I really recommend and has shown great success across the board is if people create a playlist of music that they really love and that lifts their spirits. And if you had to sit down and kind of over time, think for yourself or talk to others, what are some of your favorite songs that really deepen your sense of connection, deepen your sense of love for life and your excitement in the world, and you're wanting to get up in the morning and go at it again.
Start by listening to those ones.
Start by listening to those playlists. And
Wonderful.
for an elder that's in a nursing home, in many ways they may seem as though they're non-responsive, but if you actually play music that's from earlier in their life,
they'll come to life probably.
They will come to life. They will remember all of the things that they originally were doing and feeling and seeing. All those memories will come back to them, and they will actually come back to life in front of you.
Interesting.
And so that's a very powerful tip that I recommend. I have a quote that's one that I really love. It's, I get excited thinking the day is coming when mental health professionals will prescribe a playlist of music instead of just pharmaceuticals.
Wonderful.
Because
it's that important.
It can change your state, your feeling state instantly. In less than 60 seconds.
That's amazing.
It can change how you feel. So that's something I think is really important. It's also the case, I think in some ways people were led to think initially, going back 20, 30, 35 years ago when some of the antidepressants came out and the anti-anxiety drugs and so forth, they thought they were a magic bullet. They were a magic pill that would dramatically change their life.
Okay.
And that was the whole answer. And from my observation in the field for many years, working with lots and lots of people, it's not the whole answer. They need to not just change their biochemistry, but they need to change the way they live their life.
Okay.
And if one thing that they know is really good for them is to get out and go for
a walk.
Or
go for a workout or listen to a music. Do that more.
Do that more and be intentional about it. Put it in their schedule, block it off. Don't let it be something they just forget about and are too tired to do at the end of the day. Do it during their lunch break. Do it early in the morning. Do it when they have a break, and really schedule that in so they can change their life.
Wonderful. And you kind of help them kind of determine what those rituals are that they would do every day.
Absolutely. And what I can do is really ask some good questions of them, whether it's one-on-one or in a group. I can ask some questions about what are the challenges that they're facing? What are the problems that they're facing? And what are they doing about it now? Do they think it's making a difference? Do they think there's another way? And this gets back to something I think is really important, is that people need to find a sense of hope for the future. They need to find a sense of personal hope for themselves, that if things are going in a bad way right now, if things are difficult right now, hold on for one more day.
Hope for the future.
Stick around for one more day and make some of these small changes one by one, and things will start to turn around. We can't promise that everyone is going to have an ideal life.
Yeah.
But if they find hope and then they take action in their life, if they take action specifically and intentionally, they will see results.
Wonderful.
And so that's
exciting.
That's what I focus on, and I love to do this work because I've seen so many people turn their lives around.
It has to be very rewarding.
It is, and it's from almost every sector that you can think of. In fact, one of the groups that experiences some of the highest compassion fatigue of all, you would probably never guess. It's the field of veterinarians.
Really?
Veterinarians and people that work with animals that are sick or that are, develop some injury or illness. They got into the field because they love animals. And what do they often see? Animals that are sick, animals that maybe weren't cared for, animals that their owners don't want to spend the $3,000 for the operation. when that doctor knows if that money were spent, that dog, that cat, that beloved animal could live for a long, long time and be very, very happy.
Yeah,
and so the veterinarian is faced with having to follow through on the wishes of the owner. So that's a tough place to be.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Wow. So if people want to learn more kind of about what you do and maybe to see if they're a good fit for working with you or get some resources to learn more about compassion fatigue or caregiver fatigue, how would they do that?
It's resiliency-solutions.org. And people can go there, they can look at a description of my background, they can think about what we've said today, and consider whether they're ready to make a few steps to change their life in a pretty strong way, so that their work life is satisfying and their home life is satisfying.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Bob. I appreciate
You're very welcome.